If you own a Nintendo Switch 2 and you love platformers, consider this video your essential guide, because the games coming are genuinely wild, and some of them I honestly did not see coming. Stay with me, because a few of these are going to surprise you in the best possible way. Let's kick things off with a game that feels like Nintendo reaching deep into what made the Yoshi series so special to begin with. Yoshi and the Mysterious Book puts our favorite green dinosaur in the middle of one of the strangest adventures the franchise has ever attempted, and it all starts when a bizarre living encyclopedia called Mr. E suddenly shows up on Yoshi's Island. This isn't just any book. It's a magical world built entirely out of pages, illustrations, and creatures that literally spring to life right off the paper. And because Yoshi is exactly the kind of curious hero he's always been, he does the only reasonable thing and jumps straight inside. What makes the game genuinely fascinating is how each level functions like its own chapter of that book, with every page housing different species of strange creatures, each carrying abilities that can help Yoshi push forward. Some of them break rocks, others inflate bubbles, and some unlock hidden paths that completely change how a level opens up. So instead of simply running from left to right, the whole experience becomes something closer to solving puzzles with living tools.
Discovered traits will also be logged. You'll... And the bubbles are even bigger!
This one might be the most unexpected platformer comeback I've seen in years. Bubsy 4D brings back the infamous 90s mascot, Bubsy the Bobcat. And yes, this is the same character whose last major 3D outing in the 90s became almost legendary for all the wrong reasons. But here's the thing. Instead of pretending that history doesn't exist, the developers seem to be leaning into it with humor, using the baggage of the past as fuel for something surprisingly ambitious. Bubsy is back in full 3D this time, traveling across strange planets and bizarre environments in what amounts to a wild intergalactic platforming quest. The story brings back his classic enemies, the Woolies, but they've since been taken over by alien technology and transformed into robotic sheep creatures called Baybots, which is a sentence I genuinely didn't expect to write. That means Bubsy is jumping, gliding, rolling, and climbing through chaotic alien landscapes, collecting yarn, fighting enemies, and doing everything in his power to stop the Woolies' latest ridiculous scheme. It's loud, it's strange, and somehow that feels exactly right.
Ball now? They call me the Orange Blue! What? Can anyone explain to me why I turn into a hairball now?
This is the kind of sequel that manages to feel both deeply nostalgic and completely fresh at the exact same time. Super Meat Boy 3D takes one of the most celebrated indie platformers ever made and throws it into an entirely new dimension. Literally. If you played the original, you know exactly what that game demanded. Perfect jumps, precisely timed wall runs, and a level of patience being constantly tested by spinning saw blades and traps designed to punish even the smallest hesitation. Now take all of that chaos and picture it unfolding in full 3D. The core of what fans love is still completely intact. You're still playing as the tiny red cube-shaped hero Meat Boy, still trying to rescue Bandage Girl from the clutches of the evil Dr. Fetus, and still sprinting through deadly obstacle courses that require lightning-fast reflexes and the kind of focus most games never ask for. But the classic 2D side-scrolling perspective has been replaced with fully three-dimensional levels packed with vertical climbs, tricky camera angles, and entirely new categories of hazards that the original format could never have delivered.
Easier wall grabs and faster flow through levels. The game starts off accessible, thing we've learned into making this our best work yet. Or Super Meat Boy 3D, and one of the biggest additions is dynamic horizontal wall running. This lets us fully...
Right, this next one is easily among the most bizarre and creative concepts I've come across in a long time, and I mean that as the highest possible compliment. Denshattack is what happens when someone looks at Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, injects it with anime-style chaos, and then makes the bold and irreversible decision that instead of skateboards, you're going to be doing tricks with trains. Actual trains. The game is set in a futuristic dystopian version of Japan where climate disasters have split society in two. The wealthy living inside protected cities while the rest of the population survives in the abandoned regions left behind. In this fractured world, a rebellious underground movement called Denshattack has taken old railway lines and turned them into arenas for a radical new extreme sport where competitors perform insane stunt tricks using high-speed trains instead of boards or bikes. It's part spectacle, part resistance, and entirely unhinged in the best possible way. There are games you hear about and forget, and then there are games that grab you the instant you see them in motion. Tito is very much the second kind. It's a colorful 3D adventure platformer clearly designed to carry that joyful, classic energy of older Nintendo-style adventures while bringing its own genuinely quirky ideas to the table. The main character is Tito himself, a small bright blue blob-like hero who teams up with a cheerful bunny companion named Nori. And together the two of them set off across a whimsical world that's slowly being eaten by a mysterious shadow corruption. Stopping that spreading darkness sounds straightforward enough on paper, but the journey quickly turns into a playful romp through bizarre environments and a cast of wonderfully eccentric characters. What truly sets Tito apart is the ability system. Instead of collecting traditional power-ups, Tito can literally absorb objects and elements from the environment and transform into entirely new forms. Absorb a flower and suddenly you have a grappling ability that lets you swing across wide gaps.
A baby Michael! This is just getting silly now.
If you've ever played the original Heave Ho, you already know exactly the kind of beautiful disaster this series is capable of producing. It's a physics-based platformer where tiny characters with long, stretchy arms grab onto surfaces, swing across deadly gaps, and somehow have to reach the goal without tumbling into spikes or disappearing into the abyss. It sounds manageable right up until the moment you try to actually coordinate with friends, at which point everything collapses into glorious, shrieking chaos. Heave Ho 2 brings that whole ridiculous concept back and expands it in some meaningful ways. The biggest addition is online multiplayer, which is a pretty significant shift for a series that built its entire reputation as a couch co-op experience. The kind of game where everyone sits together in the same room and laughs until something hurts. That local multiplayer is still here, fully intact, but now players can also swing through levels together online, meaning the chaos is no longer limited to the people physically within shouting distance of your television. This one is going to hit differently if you grew up watching British cartoons, because Danger Mouse is back, and the game feels genuinely like a love letter to the animated series that first aired in the 1980s. The story picks up exactly where you'd want it to, putting the fearless secret agent Danger Mouse and his clumsy but endlessly loyal partner, Penfold, back in the middle of their eternal battle against the scheming Baron Greenback, whose latest evil plan naturally requires stopping before things get completely out of hand.
It's nasty. Proceed in a westerly direction so fast it sets the wheels on fire.
Baron Greenback's hideout, please.
Computing most dangerous route. Route found. Oh, and it's nasty.
Now, this one sits in a category entirely its own, and it might honestly be the most unusual concept on this entire list. Silicone Heart takes place on a mysterious planet that has become, for all intents and purposes, one enormous scrapyard. Broken machines stretch across the landscape in every direction. Destroyed robots lie scattered like ruins of a forgotten age. And the whole world carries the heavy, rusted atmosphere of a civilization that simply stopped one day and was never cleaned up. But rather than framing this as a survival scenario or a hostile wasteland to escape from, the game takes a far more creative approach. The goal is to rebuild life itself. At its core, Silicone Heart blends multiple genres together in a way that lands surprisingly as quite cozy. It's part farming simulator, part automation builder, and part exploration adventure, and it begins with you scavenging through piles of mechanical debris, pulling salvageable parts from the wreckage and slowly transforming the desolate landscape into a self-sustaining cyber farm. Alright, now we're in the territory of one of gaming's most iconic franchises, and this one feels like it deserves to be treated accordingly. Mega Man Dual Override is shaping up to be the long-awaited return of the classic Mega Man formula, and the fact that Capcom is tying its release to the 40th anniversary of the entire series already signals that this isn't being approached as just another entry. It's meant to be a genuine milestone moment for the franchise. The story follows the structure fans have known and loved for decades, with Mega Man once again facing Dr. Wily and his relentless army of dangerous robots across a series of futuristic stages filled with mechanical enemies, environmental hazards, and the kind of intense boss battles the series built its reputation on. The core gameplay stays true to what made the classics so enduring. Precise 2D action platforming, jumping between platforms, blasting enemies with the Mega Buster, and carefully studying the attack patterns of each powerful robot master before finally confronting them in the dramatic boss fights that have always been the heart of the experience. And we're closing out with something that is going to make a very specific group of people extremely happy. Hollow Knight Silksong. Sea of Sorrow isn't a standalone release. It's the first major expansion for Hollow Knight Silksong, and from everything shown so far, it looks set to push Hornet's adventure into completely uncharted territory. The DLC pulls players into a mysterious new region shaped entirely by the sea, with the developers describing it as a journey across and beneath salt-stricken oceans, which immediately suggests environments unlike anything seen before in the Hollow Knight universe. Gone are the underground caverns and crumbling kingdoms. In their place are coastal ruins, underwater passages, and strange maritime landscapes filled with new threats waiting to be faced. And because this is Team Cherry we're talking about, the expansion is expected to be far more substantial than just a change of scenery.